Today we will talk about national differences in political, economic, and legal systems. International business is more complex than domestic business due to varying political, economic, legal systems, as well as differences in economic development, cultural practices, education, and skill levels across countries. These disparities significantly impact the benefits, costs, and risks of international business operations, guiding management strategies and firm approaches in different nations. The focus is on understanding and appreciating country differences in political, economic, legal systems, economic development, and societal culture, as well as how these systems evolve globally and their implications for international business practices. This chapter emphasizes the interdependence of political, economic, and legal systems within a country, collectively known as its political economy, highlighting how they interact and influence each other to impact economic prosperity. The political system of a country plays a crucial role in shaping its economic and legal frameworks. Understanding different political systems is essential before delving into economic and legal discussions. The term political system refers to a nation's system of governance. Political systems can be evaluated based on two main dimensions: the degree of collectivism versus individualism they emphasize, and their level of democracy versus totalitarianism. These dimensions are interconnected. Collectivist systems often lean towards totalitarianism, while individualistic ones tend to be democratic. However, there exists a significant gray area in between. It's possible to have democratic societies that blend collectivism and individualism, as well as totalitarian societies that are not collectivist. Collectivism and individualism. Collectivism is a political system that prioritizes collective goals over individual ones, emphasizing the needs of society above personal freedoms. Individual rights may be limited if they conflict with the common good. The roots of collectivism can be traced to Plato, who argued in the Republic that individual rights should be sacrificed for the benefit of the majority, with property held in common. However, Plato did not advocate for equality, suggesting society should be stratified into classes, led by philosophers and soldiers. In modern times, socialism has embraced collectivist ideas. Modern socialism traces its roots to Karl Marx, who argued that capitalism benefits a few at the expense of many, leading to the exploitation of workers. Marx believed capitalists accumulate wealth while workers are paid subsistence wages, with their pay not reflecting the full value of their labor. After World War II, social democratic governments, influenced by Marxist ideas, nationalized industries for the public good, particularly in countries like Great Britain. However, state ownership led to inefficiency, higher prices, and taxes, prompting a shift towards free market policies in the late 20th century, including privatization of state-owned enterprises. Even when social democratic parties returned to power, they embraced private ownership. Individualism, rooted in Aristotle's philosophies, emphasizes individual freedoms in economic and political realms over state interests. This ideology, promoting diversity and private ownership, gained prominence in Protestant trading nations in the 16th century. Key British philosophers like Adam Smith, David Hume, and John Stuart Mill furthered these ideas. Individualism played a crucial role in the American colonies' quest for independence and influenced the Declaration of Independence. Economists such as Friedman, Hayek, and Buchanan continued to advocate for individualistic principles in the 20th century. Individualism prioritizes safeguarding individual freedoms and fostering economic progress through self-interest, contrasting with collectivism's focus on the collective. The Cold War exemplified this ideological clash between the Soviet Union's collectivism and the United States' individualism. While individualism surged globally from the late 1980s to 2005, a resurgence of left-leaning socialist ideas post-2005, influenced by the 2008 to 2009 financial crisis, has prompted a re-evaluation of individualism's dominance. The future balance between individualism and collectivism remains subject to ongoing shifts in global ideologies. Democracy and totalitarianism represent opposing political systems. Democracy involves governance by the people, either directly or through elected representatives, while totalitarianism entails absolute control by a single entity over all aspects of life, often suppressing dissent. These systems intersect with the individualism-collectivism spectrum. Democracy aligns with individualism, while totalitarianism often corresponds with communist collectivism. However, nuances exist. Democratic states can prioritize collective values, and totalitarian regimes may exhibit some individualistic traits, especially in the economic realm. Countries like China and Vietnam showcase this complexity, with economic liberalization alongside political constraints under ruling parties. This illustrates how political systems can blur the lines between democracy and totalitarianism, as well as individualism and collectivism. Democracy, in its pure form as practiced in ancient Greek city-states, involved direct citizen participation in decision-making. However, this is impractical in modern, complex societies. Most democracies today, like the United States, function as representative democracies, where citizens elect representatives to make decisions on their behalf. In a representative democracy, elected officials can be voted out if they fail to perform well. Key safeguards for accountability in representative democracies include freedom of expression, free media, regular elections with universal adult suffrage, limited terms, an independent judiciary, non-political bureaucracies, and free access to state information. Totalitarianism is characterized by the absence of constitutional guarantees such as free expression, media, and elections. In these states, political repression is common, civil liberties are denied, and dissent is harshly punished. There are four major forms of totalitarianism today. 1. Communist totalitarianism. Once widespread, it has declined since 1989, though it persists in countries like China, Vietnam, Laos, North Korea, and Cuba, albeit with some market reforms. 2. Theocratic totalitarianism. Political power is monopolized by religious authorities. 3. Tribal totalitarianism. Power is held by a party representing a particular tribe, such as in Kenya. 4. Right-wing totalitarianism. Allows economic freedom but restricts political freedom, often opposing socialism and communism, as seen in the fascist regimes of Germany and Italy, and military dictatorships in Latin America and Asia. Since the 1980s, right-wing totalitarianism has retreated in favor of democratic systems in many regions. Pseudo-democracies. Many nations in the world exist in a gray area between pure democracies and complete totalitarian regimes, embodying what could be termed as imperfect or pseudo-democracies. In these systems, authoritarian elements have gained control over significant aspects of governance, aiming to restrict political and civil liberties. A notable example is Vladimir Putin's Russia, where elections occur, political competition exists, and the press is not entirely state-controlled. However, Putin has strategically curtailed the freedoms of opposition groups, gradually consolidating his power over the past 2 decades. While dissenting voices persist in Russia and elections nominally remain competitive, the practical ability to challenge the entrenched regime has diminished, highlighting the erosion of political, legal, and economic checks on power. Political ideology and economic systems are closely linked. Countries prioritizing individual goals tend to have market-based economies, while those focused on collective goals often control enterprises and restrict markets. There are 3 broad types of economic systems: market, command, and mixed economies. In a market economy, all production is privately owned, and supply and demand determine what is produced. Consumers influence production through their purchasing decisions, and prices signal producers to adjust output. However, monopolies can distort this system by restricting output and raising prices, leading to inefficiency and higher costs for consumers. To counter this, governments promote competition and prevent monopolistic practices through antitrust laws. Private ownership in a market economy encourages competition and innovation, as entrepreneurs are motivated by profits to improve products, processes, and services. This drive for efficiency and innovation supports economic growth and development. In a pure command economy, the government controls all aspects of production, including what goods and services are produced, their quantities, and prices. This system aligns with collectivist ideals, aiming to allocate resources for the public good. All businesses are state-owned, with the goal of directing investments for national interests rather than private gain. Historically, command economies were prevalent in communist countries and some socialist-led democracies like France and India, although such systems have declined since the late 1980s. However, command economies often lead to inefficiency and stagnation. State-owned enterprises lack the incentive to reduce costs or innovate since they are protected from failure. Without private ownership, there is little motivation to improve services for consumers, resulting in economic stagnation rather than growth. Mixed economies combine elements of both market and command economies. Some sectors are privately owned and governed by market forces, while others are state-owned with government planning. Once common in developed countries like the UK, France, and Sweden, mixed economies have become less prevalent due to privatization, though state-owned enterprises remain in countries like Brazil, Italy, and India. However, state involvement has increased in places like Russia and Venezuela, where authoritarian regimes control key sectors. In mixed economies, governments may take control of struggling firms to protect national interests, as seen when the US government took stakes in companies like AIG and Citigroup during the 2008 financial crisis. These actions are generally temporary, with governments selling their shares once stability returns. In some cases, like China, state-owned enterprises are used to promote industrial policies, such as providing low-interest loans to private technology firms. While this approach has led to successes like Huawei, critics argue that governments are often ill-equipped to choose which industries to support, risking inefficient outcomes. Nonetheless, state support has occasionally fostered significant growth, as seen with Airbus in Europe. A country's legal system encompasses the laws that govern behavior, enforcement processes, and avenues for seeking redress. Crucial for international business, these laws regulate business practices, transactions, and the rights and responsibilities of parties involved. Variations in legal systems impact a country's appeal for investment and market entry. Political systems influence legal frameworks, with laws often reflecting the ruling ideology. Totalitarian regimes tend to restrict private enterprise, while democratic states favor pro-private enterprise and pro-consumer laws. Diverse legal systems influence international business in several key areas. Variations in legal systems, contract law, property rights, including patents, copyrights and trademarks, intellectual property protection, and laws concerning product safety and liability. These differences underscore how legal environments can significantly impact business operations and strategies on a global scale. There are three main types of legal systems used globally: common law, civil law, and theocratic law. Common law originated in England and is practiced in former British colonies like the US, is based on tradition, precedent, and custom. Judges have the flexibility to interpret laws in light of past rulings, creating precedents that influence future cases. Civil law is based on a comprehensive set of codes found in countries like Germany, France, Japan, and Russia. Judges in civil law systems apply the law strictly as written, with less interpretative flexibility compared to common law. Theocratic law is based on religious principles. Islamic law, for example, derives from the Quran and Sunnah. Though it primarily focuses on moral behavior, it also governs certain commercial activities, such as the prohibition of interest. Islamic financial institutions are prevalent in many Muslim countries, managing trillions in assets. Many Muslim nations blend Islamic law with common or civil law systems. Common law and civil law systems diverge in their treatment of contract law, a fundamental aspect of legal systems worldwide. Common law. Under common law, contracts are highly detailed due to the system's relatively vague nature. Parties draft extensive contracts, accounting for various contingencies, as common law leaves many aspects unspecified. While this detailed approach can lead to more expensive contract drafting and adversarial dispute resolutions, common law systems offer flexibility for judges to interpret contracts based on the specific circumstances. Civil law. In civil law systems, contracts are typically concise because many issues are already addressed in civil codes. This results in shorter and less specific contracts compared to those in common law jurisdictions. While this streamlined approach may simplify contract drafting, resolving disputes can be less adversarial. However, civil law systems offer less flexibility for judges to interpret contracts. To address conflicts in international trade arising from these differing legal systems, the United Nations developed the Convention on Contracts for the International Sale of Goods, CISG. The CISG provides a uniform set of rules for international commercial contracts, promoting consistency and predictability in cross-border transactions. However, not all countries have ratified the CISG, leading to potential complications when dealing with contracts involving parties from non-ratifying nations. In cases where the CISG does not apply, international firms often opt for arbitration as an alternative dispute resolution mechanism. Arbitration allows parties to settle their disputes outside of traditional court systems, with decisions made by neutral arbitrators. Established arbitration bodies like the International Court of Arbitration of the International Chamber of Commerce in Paris provide a reliable and recognized platform for resolving international contract disputes efficiently and effectively. Okay, property rights and corruption. The concept of property in a legal context refers to resources owned by individuals or businesses under a legal title, encompassing assets like land, buildings, equipment, capital, mineral rights, businesses, and intellectual property, protected by patents, copyrights, and trademarks. Property rights denote the legal authority over how a resource is utilized and the income generated from it. Legal systems worldwide vary in their definitions and safeguards for property rights, with most countries having laws to protect such rights. For instance, even in China, a nominally communist state with a growing mixed economy, laws were enacted in 2007 and strengthened in 2016 to safeguard private property rights, including land and intellectual property, reflecting the country's increasing focus on innovation. Despite legal protections, property rights violations can occur due to private or public actions. Here, we discuss violations of property rights through both private and public actions. Private actions. These involve illegal activities like theft, piracy, and blackmail by individuals or groups. In countries with weak legal systems, such as post-communist Russia in the 1990s, such crimes are more prevalent. The lack of effective law enforcement often leads to situations where businesses must pay protection money to avoid violent retribution. Similar organized crime issues have been seen in other countries, such as the mafia in the US and the yakuza in Japan, though the scale and impact vary. Public actions and corruption. Corruption occurs when public officials extort bribes from businesses or engage in illegal activities. This is widespread across various societies, from high-profile cases in the Philippines and Indonesia to more subtle forms in places like the Netherlands and the US. The extent of corruption often reflects the strength of the rule of law in a country. In nations with weak legal systems, corruption can be rampant and institutionalized, reducing economic growth and foreign investment. Transparency International estimates that corruption-related bribes cost around $400 billion annually and significantly hinder economic performance in affected countries. Okay. In the 1970s, the U.S. enacted the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, FCPA, to prevent U.S. companies from bribing foreign officials to secure business deals. The FCPA prohibits bribery of foreign government officials and requires publicly traded companies to maintain detailed records to detect violations. In 2012, Walmart was scrutinized for potentially violating the FCPA in its efforts to expand in Mexico. In 1997, the OECD introduced the Convention on Combating Bribery of Foreign Public Officials in International Business Transactions, which requires member countries to criminalize the bribery of foreign officials. Both the FCPA and the OECD Convention allow exceptions for facilitating or expediting payments, also known as grease payments. These are small bribes intended to speed up routine government actions, such as issuing permits or processing paperwork. While technically bribes, they are considered less severe than those used to obtain or maintain business because they only expedite already required duties. Intellectual property encompasses a wide array of creative outputs like software, music, and drug formulas, with patents, copyrights, and trademarks serving as legal instruments to protect ownership rights. In today's knowledge-based economy, intellectual property is a vital asset for businesses. Yet digital advancements have made protecting it more complex due to easy online replication and distribution. The fundamental aim of intellectual property laws is to reward and incentivize innovation and creativity, as exemplified by patents granting exclusive rights to inventors, such as in the pharmaceutical industry. Companies advocate for strong international agreements like the trade-related aspects of intellectual property rights, TRIPS, to reinforce global regulations. To safeguard their intellectual property, firms utilize lobbying, legal measures, and strategic market decisions while remaining vigilant against piracy to maintain market integrity, as illustrated by Microsoft's experience with pirated software from Thailand infiltrating global markets. The last slide we have for today is product safety and product liability. Product safety laws establish safety requirements that products must meet, while product liability entails holding a company and its executives accountable for harm caused by their products. Non-compliance with safety standards can significantly increase product liability risks. Both civil and criminal product liability laws exist, with civil laws involving compensation for damages and criminal laws leading to fines or imprisonment. The United States has extensive liability laws, contributing to high liability insurance costs that some argue hinder American businesses' global competitiveness. Variations in safety and liability laws between countries present ethical dilemmas for firms operating internationally. While adhering to stricter home country standards is ethically sound, some companies exploit lenient foreign regulations to conduct business practices that would be unacceptable at home.
Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe to channel.